I was as good as dead. But they didn't know I heard him. And then my eldest son, his little girl was at that time 2.5 years old. My granddaughter was 2.5 years old. And my son said, Kim, call grandmother. And my granddaughter said, Grandma. It was very soft. And I could hear my son tell her, louder, she can't hear you. And my granddaughter, who was 2.5, said, Grandma. She just drew the ma, but there was no increase in volume. Grandma. And you know, my whole body might have been nearly dead, but my brain was still working. And I told myself, how can my granddaughter come to see me? She's only 2.5. And in that private hospital, children under 12 were not allowed in, unless in very critical cases. Then I said, oh my goodness. I said to myself, I must be very sick. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow my granddaughter to come in. And from there, I made an aspiration, which even today, I didn't know how it happened. I said to myself, I'm very sick, but I will be sick only for 40 days. Can you imagine that? To make that aspiration, even while in coma, I will be sick only for 40 days. After that, I'm going to be well. Goodness, as though that was going to happen. And so, it was decided that I should be taken home. My 3 sons now had a meeting. Yes, when the body, or nearly dead body, was brought home, who was going to remove the respirator? It is not an easy job. My youngest son said, I'm the youngest, so the responsibility should fall on the 2 elder ones. My second son said, Koko, you are the man of the house. You decide. I cannot do it. And then my eldest son said, I also cannot do it. It will be on my mind for the rest of my life that I was the one who removed her respirator to kill her off. And so they went back to the doctor and said none of them could do it. Even my nephew, I had a nephew, my brother's son. He is a doctor practicing in Kuala Lumpur. Even he told my sons, there's no more hope. Take her home. Take her home. All people like to die at home and not in the hospital. But my son said no. Let her live to the end of her days, even though it's only a few more days. Let her die in hospital. I don't want to have that awful thought which is going to traumatize me for the rest of my life, that I was the one to remove the respirator. And so I was left in hospital, unable to move. I was on the respirator all the time. My sisters, that's Angie's mother, and my sons took turns to look after me. Not look after me, just to be by my bedside. And all the time, I had a little cassette where my son put on something so simple, something everybody would think nothing about it. It's just the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. So on both sides of the tape, one side was an Om Mani Padme Hum, the other side was the 21 homages to Green Tara. And so my sisters and my sons and even nurses had to play the tape just forward and backward, forward and backward, forward and backward, close to my ears for 14 days. And you wouldn't believe it. I heard the mantras, and my heart could recite with the tape. And so it went on for 14 days. On the fourth, my son had to go to work. So when my son went to work, Angie's mom, who's my sister, and my other sister took turn to look after me. And then in the evening, my children would come, my sisters would go home. But on the 14th day, my sisters told my son, "Hey, Chuan," my son's name is Eng Chuan, the eldest son. He said, "Chuan, your mother's mouthpiece dropped off today, displaced." So they put it back for me. And that happened 2 or 3 times during the day. It had never moved at all for the past or the previous 14 days. There was no movement at all. So my son said, "Oh goodness, I think her jaws are beginning to move." And so my son said loudly in my ear, "Mom, are you trying to speak? If you're trying to speak," do you know what he said? "If you're trying to speak, what would you say?" He said, "If you're trying to speak, open your eyes." That was the only thing I could do because I was already paralyzed. And so I opened my eyes, not wide, just a tiny slit on my right eye. My left eye was already affected by the stroke. It couldn't move at all. So it was only my right eye which opened that little bit. So my sons ran for the doctor. And the doctor came and certified that I was out of coma. Out of coma didn't mean that I could sit and stand and move and talk and laugh. I was still I drifted from consciousness to unconsciousness, mostly unconsciousness. But I was beginning to respond, not talk, just respond. When the nurses came and said, "Open your mouth, we are going to clean your gums, we are going to clean your mouth," I could do it. Not well, but I could understand a little bit of instruction. And so, I was out of coma. What had happened to all the blood and the pus in my stomach? Nobody knew. The bloating slowly subsided. I lost nearly 30 pounds weight in 14 days. But I was alive. I was alive. Not much of alive, but still alive. I was paralyzed. I was paralyzed from neck to toe. I couldn't move a muscle. My legs were paralyzed. I told you I have that feeling of going through the sugarcane machine. When I was able to utter a few words, very, very slurred, I asked my sister, where are my legs? I have no legs. Have they amputated my legs? And Angie's mother would slap. Here, your legs are here. They have not been amputated. I said, oh, are my legs there? But I didn't know they are there. And so that was the damage of the paralysis. I was not even able to turn myself. But I had the awful feeling that I was like a pin cushion with millions of pins sticking into my body, my legs, my hands, my neck. Only my head could move. I was not even to turn myself left or right. The nurses had to come and turn me every 2 hours. But it was hell. It was like sleeping on millions of needles. Then they sent the physiotherapist to my room just to move me. I wasn't able to move at all. I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. I couldn't move a muscle. And after 2 weeks, no, not 2 weeks, 1 month. After 1 month in the specialist hospital, the doctor, the neurosurgeon was due to go to Japan to attend some conference. And my son said, what's going to happen to my mother? And the neurosurgeon said, well, she only needs rest and physiotherapy. Then I told my son, in that case, we might as well transfer to the general hospital, because I was a government servant and I'm entitled to first-class free treatment in the general hospital. And anyway, my bill in the specialist hospital has soared so high. Up to today, my children won't tell me how much they have spent. But they told me, Mom, all our savings to buy 3 homes are all gone. And for that, I was very touched that my sons have spent all their savings to save my life, together with my savings. And I thank my daughters-in-law for not saying one word against the spending their life savings to save me. And so the doctor wrote his notes, recommend me, and I was transferred to the general hospital. In the general hospital, the first class was full. Second class was full. Third class was full. And they had only to put a bed. You know, the beds go like this, and then a corridor, and the other row of beds. My bed had to be put in the corridor between the other beds in the third class. And so I was there for a few days until there was a vacancy in the first class. Then I was transferred to the first class. And in the first class, the neurosurgeon at that time, 1995, there was only one neurosurgeon, government neurosurgeon in the whole of Perak. And he was stationed in Kuala Lumpur, and he comes to Ipoh only once a month. So he came, and a team of doctors, and I think young doctors came. And they checked me. And the first thing they checked me was my eyesight.